Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Chats in the Blog Cabin. You know, the show where I virtually invite people into the blog cabin to chat about life. And today we're chatting about a project that is near and dear to my heart, and that has to do with dogs. We have two dogs of our own. So welcome Bob Bryant. He is the Chief Technology Officer of Mission Canine Rescue. Woo! I almost forgot the rescue part. So Bob, welcome to the show, and tell us a little about yourself before we start talking about Mission Canine.
All right. Well, we're actually trying to drop the rescue part of it because we do so much more than rescue. So Mission Canine's just fine. In fact, you can uh, find us both ways. What is it you want to know from me, right quick?
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm 65 years old. That makes me ancient, but I'm one of these guys that's kind of in an unusual sport. I've trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the past 12 years. I love it. It keeps me young. My young life, I grew up in Texarkana, Texas, lived in Dallas, and lived in Tyler for a while. And after the organization was founded back in 2013, I made my way out to the West Coast where we have some good support. The rest of the team's in Texas. Uh, I enjoy just about everything outdoors, love to camp. As I said, I love jujitsu and pretty much anything related to dogs.
So what made you get involved with Mission Canine?
Well, if you'd have told me now 9 years ago, 10 years ago, that I'd be bringing dogs home from all over the world, I would have told you you were patently insane. I'm in sales for a living. I work in merchant services. I provide credit card processing primarily for e-commerce companies. And I was looking for large groups on Facebook that I liked the work of. And I offered a particular group, which was the predecessor of Mission Canine, to share income from accounts if they would refer me. Well, they did. They liked what happened, and they asked me to help support the organization. And I went in to do it. And at that time, they really needed to do some advertising, get more donations. But the then executive director didn't understand that you had to spend a little money to get money in to take care of the dogs. And as a result, she wound up having to leave the organization, get a quote unquote real job, and I was asked to co-found it by my partner, Kristen, back in 2012, and didn't think twice about it. We did, and here we are, however many years later, 2021, quite a while. Everything's going great.
So let's talk about Mission Canine. What exactly does it do?
Okay. Mission Canine is an organization. We're based in Houston, Texas. We bring military and other contract working dogs home from all around the world. Since 2013, we brought home over 1,000 dogs. Over 520 of those dogs have been reunited with former handlers. We've touched thousands with veterinary care. We've provided boarding for dogs whose military members have PCSed overseas to another duty station. There's not much we don't do in the realm of working dogs.
Oh, I totally understand about the military dogs. The military members of our military, when they're PCS and overseas, it's so expensive for them to bring their dogs that they
Right,
have, sometimes there's no option but to put them in the pound. Fortunately, we actually have a dog that came from a military member. He was PCS in Japan and he just couldn't bring her. So she ended up part of our family, and we would not have imagined our life without her. She wasn't the dog we wanted, but she's definitely the dog we needed in our family because she's the most loving dog ever. She's a 65-pound pit bull mix, and she thinks she's a lap dog.
wow, that's a chunk.
Yeah, that is a chunk. I mean, she thinks she's just like our 10-year old 10-pound Shih Tzu. She thinks she does everything Allie can do. So, what exactly do you do? You said you help the military. You bring the dogs home. So, how? Tell us about that process.
Let me tell you a little bit about the process. Let's talk about the military side for a while. Well, everybody thinks, oh, the military always brings the dogs home. They come home when they're handler. Unfortunately, that's not true. A military dog can have as many as five handlers in its military working life. And when the dog is retired, the first handler has the first choice, second handler, so forth down the road. People ask me, well, why wouldn't the first handler take their dog? And the answer is there's a lot of reasons that can prevent a handler from getting his dog. One, maybe the handler's not through with his military service. He doesn't have the ability or the time to take care of the dog. So in many cases, it could go to a second handler. Another possibility that exists is the handler has extremely small children, and we have a dog that's trained for protection, aggression, apprehension. These dogs are toy crazy, and you get a little child in the way of a working dog and a ball, and the dog means no harm to the child, but the dog wants the ball, and sometimes the kids tend to get in the way.
Mhm.
So that's part of it. So military dogs, when they're retired overseas, they're no longer considered military assets. Again, they're considered property, not soldiers, not brothers in arms. And
Mhm.
because of that, they're ineligible to take military transport. Well, since word has gotten out about what we do, anytime a dog is retiring overseas, we get a call or an email from their handler and tells us about it. Then we work with the overseas kennel master, the kennel staff there, to provide transport for the dog. There's only two airlines now that will fly large dogs home, and that's Lufthansa and KLM. So we've really been limited in our ability to transfer these dogs. The military has done the right thing for us in a few situations where they put a few dogs that were being retired on a rotator flight home. We picked them up in San Diego. That was 6 dogs that came home from Japan back last September. So they're starting to do more to bring them home. But unfortunately, more, I won't say they're stuck overseas. They're never stuck overseas, but they're stuck as long as it takes to get funds to bring them home. They receive good care, they get vet care, great food. There's no problem with the military's treatment of their dogs overseas in most cases. Contract working dogs are a totally separate situation. Contract working dogs are privately owned dogs. They do the same jobs as the military dogs, they're trained the same, they work in the same situations. However, they don't have the backing, the full faith and trust of the
Mhm.
US government. And as a result, when the money gets short, the dogs are the first to suffer. We've seen contract working dogs get stuck overseas. We've seen them senselessly killed for display when when a contract company ran out of money. They took the handlers' passports. These were foreign handlers. They wouldn't let them leave. They euthanized a bunch of dogs and they stuck them in a pile. And at that point, we were about 2 years into this, and we couldn't let this happen again. So we try to make friends, and I'm going to say friends in quotes,
Mhm.
with these contractors that don't do the right thing for their dogs, to where we convince them that if they let us take the dogs, that they're not going to get a bad rap for letting the dogs stay over there. And as a result, we've been able to, instead of damning them, we've been able to quietly slip in the back door and get the dogs out. Now, most contractors do the right thing by their dogs. Big companies like AM Canine and Vaporweight Technologies, Von Lick Kennels, those dogs always come home. You don't have to worry about those.
Mhm.
Occasionally, what you do have to worry about is dogs that are contract dogs that are attached to the military. For instance, over in Afghanistan during the drawdown, which was a
Mhm.
massive failure, and I'm just going to put it just like it is and how I feel, there were working dogs that were left at the Kabul airport. And unfortunately, I believe that some of these dogs were attached to the military. They were not owned by the military, but they could have been attached to the military. And it's my understanding there's still groups there that are trying to care for them. And we hope that we'll have an opportunity to bring some home. But as the weeks go past, my hopes, unfortunately, grow a little bit dimmer about that. We also receive many dogs from local police and sheriff departments when they retire. Again, many times you've got a canine that is somewhat aggressive. You've got a situation with small children, they can't take them. TSA, they will retire some of their dogs with us. Some of the coolest dogs we've had have come from TSA, Springer Spaniels specifically,
Mhm.
and German short haired pointers, which you don't normally see in the working dog world, but you'll see cruising airports because they're not, quote, scary, unquote.
Mhm.
Because the Belgian Malinois and the German Shepherd are still the predominant working dogs, and too many people are afraid of them.
Which I don't understand that, especially the German Shepherd, because I had a German Shepherd growing up, and she was like the sweetest dog ever. So I just can't understand why people are so let so many dogs get such a bad rap. Like we were talking
Well,
about just a minute ago about pit bulls as well.
right. Well, I have a German Shepherd. In fact, I have the first dog that we rescued, and only dog so far that came out of Canada, a little city called Longueuil, which is suburb in the Montreal, Quebec area. Police Canine Navy. He's a patrol and drug dog, and unfortunately, he's a German Shepherd. He's a beauty. He's a bicolor, but he's not your sweet German Shepherd. He wants to eat people, so we have to be real careful where we place dogs that are trained for protection, simply because one slip can cause a dog to have to be euthanized and create just havoc for families with lawsuits and things like that. The last thing you want is a dog bite.
That is so true. Now we need to take a brief commercial break, but we'll get back, and I want to talk about how you got the placement of the German Shepherd that you have right now.
Okay.
Homeschooling just got easier and deliciously fun. My new book, Dishing Up Devotions, 36 Faith-Building Activities for Homeschooling Families, is a delightful devotional the whole family will love. With encouragement for mom, fun family activities, conversation starters, and simple baking recipes. It's sure to feed your family's faith while building lasting memories in just minutes a week.
And we are back talking with Bob from Mission K9. You mentioned right before the break that you have a German Shepherd that you guys rescued from only first dog you rescued from Canada. Let's talk about your placement and why you decided to take in the dog.
All right. I'll tell you exactly. I was contacted by the canine department up in the city back in, I think we started in November of 2019, and they said they had a dog that had been retired. He had a small little ligament issue. Plus, there was a problem where the handler had been released from the police department. I don't know the situation at all with that. I haven't asked. It's none of my business. However, because of that, they would not let the canine go with a handler. And unfortunately, in Canada, dogs that are trained for protection and apprehension are considered dangerous dogs, and they would have euthanized him otherwise. And these guys didn't want to see that happen. They had heard about us. They reached out to me, and why I took him was that, candidly, I have the ability, the training, and the expertise to handle these dogs that are bike trained. I know how to keep myself out of trouble, even though, quite honestly, the first week I had him, I don't know if you can see that for the
Mhm.
name.
Yeah.
See that lovely little spot right
Uh-huh.
there? That's a German Shepherd bite, and I'll tell you how I got it in just a second. And I'm an idiot, and this is how you learn. But we had an older Belgian Malinois, contract working dog, CWD. That's what, by the way, we didn't say what CWD stands for. It's contract working dog, named Anubis. Anubis, if you recall, is the Egyptian god of the dead that decides if you get in the afterlife or not. Well, this poor pup had been abused by one of these companies that had killed a bunch of these dogs. And he'd been beaten by foreign handlers because when a working dog gets a toy as a reward and he doesn't release it, there's only three ways to get it out. The best way is you give them a treat and they give out the toy,
Mhm.
or you choke them out, or you beat them. And unfortunately, the male handlers chose the last two, and this dog was terrified when he came here. We were asked to take him, and we just lost a dog, and I didn't know if we wanted one or not, but we took him, agreed with my partner, and he didn't like. I can honestly say that he didn't want anything to do with me for the entire 4 years we had him because he was terrified of men, but he bonded like a tick to my wife. And when I knew that he was within 5 or 6 months of his ultimate end,
Mhm.
I knew that it was better to have a dog than to not have a dog. So you can do all these things that you're used to doing and not have this big empty void. It just makes the grief process a little bit easier. So I thought about it and determined that we were probably the best home for the dog's name is Navy, by the way, like in the Navy. His name was Demon. They thought that was too rough, so they changed it to Navy. Um, so back in March of 2020, right before all this wonderful lockdown happened, I flew to Burlington, Vermont from Southern California. They drove him across the border, met with him for a while. It scared them because I walked right up to his crate, opened it, handed him a chicken treat, grabbed him and said, "Come on, let's go." They were afraid they told me later they were afraid he was going to nail me, but he
Mm.
didn't. He only nipped me one time during the getting to know you dating period where he kept sticking a ball in my face and I pushed him off. Well, he nipped me. I'm like, "Don't you do that again." He's like, "Just remember, I can do that." But Navy is quite a character. He's a good boy.
So what made you decide, with all this thing about, he had a bad reputation, he's not really a bad reputation, but he's a dog that was there for protection. What made you decide to, I want this dog. This dog is going to
because because he would have been difficult to place with any other adopter. Uh, it's a risk placing a bike trained dog with a family that doesn't understand the nature of a dog, especially this one. He has insane toy drive. He has insane prey drive. Little kids, bad idea. Other people don't get close. I pointed out
Mm-hmm.
my little boo boo here. How I got that the first week I had him back here, I went to a park I hadn't been to in a couple of years with my older military working dog, a Labrador named Oreo, and a friend of mine there. His name is Richard. Richard is hard of hearing, and I didn't know that Richard didn't have his hearing aids in. Richard started waving at me, walking up to him, and I just wait, 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 wait. All the time, the dog is laying flat as a pancake on the ground. And I'm not too worried about it. Richard comes up. I still tell him, "I need you to stop, I need you to stop." Next thing I know, he reaches for my shoulder to tap me on the shoulder. The dog springs
Mm-hmm.
up. I turned, bam. And all I could say was, "Good boy." He did
Mm-hmm.
exactly what he was trained to do. And Richard said, "Did that dog bite you?" I said, "Yes, sir, he did." He said, "Was he trying to bite me?" "Yes, sir, he was." And now he thinks I'm a hero because I took the dog bite from him. And I just feel like an idiot because I didn't read his body language. Now I know that just because Navy's laying down, he's ready to work.
Work.
He's ready to go.
So what kind of transition is there for these dogs that, that were trained to work and are trained to work in war zones and police dogs and things like that, when they're transitioning into just a normal home?
Basically, basically, with a lot of the working dogs that are from overseas, they're not house trained, so that's the first step. But that's a very very easy thing to do. No dog wants to make a mess in his own home. They just don't want to do it, and I think it literally embarrasses them a little bit when they do it. If a dog can be embarrassed, that would be why. Navy has never had an accident in this house in the be coming up 2 years in March that he's been with us. Uh, Potty training is one thing. Stimulation is the main thing. These dogs have insane toy drive. As long as you provide toys for them to play with, you're not going to have an issue with acclimation. Sometimes other members of the family need to be introduced slowly. For instance, my daughter and her boyfriend. He made friends with her very quickly because he's very friendly to women, but he dominated my daughter's boyfriend and he was scared of him. And so I would delight when the boyfriend would come over and Navy would basically just back him up into the corner. And I just said, "You have to be assertive with him." But I also tell people when they first meet him, don't look him in the eyes, because if you look him in the eyes, that's a threat. I told my vet that. She laughed and said, "Oh, I got this." Next thing, she had a dog trying to eat her that thankfully was muzzled. And she was laughing after and said, "Well, you warned me." Yeah, I did.
So what precautions do you take when you get a dog like that?
First of all, I make very sure of my proximity to other people. I keep him well away from other people. He is always on leash whenever there are any other dogs in the area. I ask people that have their dogs off the leash to please leash your dog. And believe me, I've gotten horrible pushback. I've had people cuss me out. I've had little dogs run up to him. He ragdolled one of them. Didn't kill the dog,
Mm-hmm.
but he he just shook him. Had another one that tried to bite him, and I had an owner tell me, "Well, you shouldn't take a patrol dog in the park." I said, You shouldn't be an idiot and have your dog off leash in a park that's not an off leash dog park. So I keep distance. And one thing I keep that's even more worthwhile than anything, and I don't have one right here, but it's about the size, a little bit bigger than a pill bottle. Little portable boat air horn. You've probably seen them.
Mhm.
They will break up a fight instantly, and they will keep another dog or person away. Now any park I go to, I've got that air horn on me. In fact, all of our staff carries it at our ranch in Texas, where we have all the dogs in our care. We can talk about that too if you want to. But I'll take that horn out. Some dog's coming. Beep. You've never seen a dog turn around and run so fast. Plus, it breaks up any aggression. And somebody screamed at me, thought I pepper sprayed their dog. And I'm like, you obviously don't know what a horn sounds like. But my days at local parks and high schools are spent with saying, get your dog on a leash. A lot of times, so as a result, I walk him at dark, early in the morning. I mean, this dog walks about 4 miles a day. So
Wow.
you just have to understand the nature of the dog, and you keep him away from people. And when I introduce him to other people, he's muzzled. I don't ever do it without a muzzle because his first intent is to protect.
Which is what he was trained to do. A lot of
Yeah,
people don't realize that most of the dogs that are aggressive, they're trained to be aggressive.
mhm, this is correct.
So let's talk about the ranch that you were just talking about.
All right. Mission Canine's facility, we have our working canine ranch. It is in Magnolia, Texas, which is just north of Houston on Veterans Road of all places. We have about 54 dogs in our care. We have a kennel manager, veterinary assistant there, and a staff of about 12 part-timers that take care of the dogs. They give them stimulation, they give them playtime. Each dog spends a lot of time out in play yards. They rotate through the ranch house to where they learn how to live inside and just basically learn how to be a dog again. And while they're there, we test them for things like reactions to other dogs, because before we can adopt a dog out, we have to know if they're small dog aggressive, if they're large dog aggressive,
Mhm.
if they have a particular dislike for men or women, or a problem with kids, or occasionally skin color, believe it or not,
Mhm.
becomes an issue. Some dogs that are trained to apprehend people that are border jumpers, they have a reaction to skin color, which is unfortunate, but again, that's been their normal targets.
So the dogs come to you and they go straight to the ranch. They don't go
And
yours
no,
your situation you adopted straight from Canada. But do most
right,
dogs go to the ranch and go through training
yes,
there?
yes, most dogs do go to the ranch. The reason that I took this dog directly was because it was a difficult time. The lockdowns were starting, and I knew that if I didn't go get him personally, uh, he wouldn't get back in time. And he had been in a kennel for 6.5 months already, and
Mm.
it was just too long. And these dogs go stir crazy when they're confined that long.
So let's talk about getting the dog from overseas to the United States. Does a team member from Mission Canine go fly over and then fly back with the dogs? How does that work?
With the military dogs, generally not. They're generally we have the kennel masters take them to wherever they need to go. They'll go as cargo on KLM Airlines or Lufthansa. United used to be a primary carrier, but they've stopped transporting the large crates, so that means that we can't use them for any larger dogs. The kennel masters get them ready and they ship them with contract dogs. For instance, from the Middle East, from Turkey, we have 10 dogs right now that we're trying to get out of Turkey. The reason why that they can't come directly here is that the CDC had implemented a sweeping rabies ban back mid July, which in all candor, I believe, is a political stunt by the purebred breeders to keep feral dogs in from overseas, because all of these countries that they ban them from, it's a 100-country ban. These are all the hot countries where all the feral dogs will come from that the soldiers adopt. And because of that, even with validated and current rabies vaccinations and health certificates, they would be refused entry. So what we have to do is we have to go to Turkey. We will fly these dogs as escorts, which means we can take 2 dogs for the price of one, and we will fly them up to somewhere in Canada. I won't say exactly where they will stay for a couple of months, and then they'll be able to come in the United States. So generally, when it's a place in the Middle East, we will fly over as a team, so 10 or 12 dogs. 5 of us can fly over there and get back 10 or 12 dogs cheaper overall than we can just to bring the dogs back from here without our intervention directly.
Now, I know there has to be a lot of red tapes, like you were just talking about the rabies ban. What other type of red tapes do you have to go through? Because I'm sure you have a lot of steps that you have to go through. It's not just getting on the airplane and going to pick up the dog.
It depends on where they're coming from. Iraq can be kind of a real pain just because you're dealing with a regime that, in general, doesn't like us. Kuwait is easy. We just have to have our health certificates and forms. We've really never run into a problem with it, other than it's just we've learned how to put everything together that they need the first time. You don't leave anything, because you leave something out, you don't have a health certificate, that dog's not getting back. So we make sure we have everything we need from the get-go to get these dogs home.
Now, when you actually adopt them out, and most of the time you said you give the first choices, the first handler, then the second handler, and third handler. What are the handlers like when they were reunited with their dogs?
Oh, if you'll search YouTube for military dog reunion and Mission Canine, I have seen it's some of the most joyous things you'll ever see. They may not recognize the handler for a second, especially if they've been apart for a few years, but once they do, it's just pure love. It's the most wonderful thing, and you have to be there to experience it. My partners normally do the reunions. My scope of the organization is to make sure that we have adequate funding to do what we need to do, get new relationships, things like that, deal with donor management, this and that. But I've had the pleasure of handling the leash to a couple of former handlers, and it's just a wonderful feeling. The dog and the human are equally just bound and amazed that they've been able to get back together again. It's a wonderful thing.
I love that. Now, you just mentioned donors and donations. So, how can people help Mission Canine?
Well, Mission Canine needs quite a few things right now, and unfortunately, the nature of a nonprofit organization is to have its hand stuck out.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is, how does the nonprofit spend the funds it's given? How much of the money gets wasted? And that's a huge question that everybody needs to ask. The question is, how much of a dollar that I give goes directly to the work? And for Mission Canine Rescue, the answer is 91 cents out of every dollar goes toward our work. I say, well, Bob, what do you do with the other 9 cents? Simple. I raise another 91 cents with it. That's how we fund it. As I said, we're currently getting dogs home. We need to get dogs home from Turkey. We're still hopeful that we can get some dogs home from Afghanistan. However, we're not going to, unlike other organizations that did ask for money to bring dogs home from Afghanistan and didn't bring any dogs home, it begs the question, why'd they ask for money for something they couldn't do? Is that okay? I don't think that's okay. I think that when you know you can do something, when I know that there's a plane load of dogs coming from Afghanistan, then I'll ask for money. I will never ask for money on a maybe or an if. So there's that. We have to get these dogs home from Turkey. We have a current, literally, we do close to $1.8 million a year in work, and I could easily double our work with double the money. But it's a growth process. More and more people are finding out about us. But we have huge vet bills. It costs us close to $80,000 a month to run our operation. And so we're hoping to find more corporate donors, more foundations that like what we do, especially someone that would want to leave a legacy for their family that we could recognize. As it is, sometimes I'm worried that there's too much month at the end of the money, but our donors are awesome, and somehow we always seem to come out ahead.
Now, what would you tell critics that are saying that the dogs aren't worth it? Because honestly, to me, I can see the dogs being worth it, but there are some people that are not dog people. They're like, it's not worth doing $1.8 million to save these dogs.
To those people, I say go jump off a short bridge. These dogs work selfishly. They train like athletes all their life. They save lives. They are worthy of our support.
Mm-hmm.
They go into situations that our police officers, our men and women of the military don't. They're on the front lines. They're after the bad guy. The bad guy gets to them first. And every week I see a story about a canine getting killed. And for those people that don't care about dogs, well, maybe you can, uh, who knows? I don't know. I'm not even going to go there. It's just those that would not support a creature that has served selflessly, that in many cases has given the majority of the years of their lives in service. I have no use for you at all.
Now, why do you think that they don't get the respect? Because they're animals? Because honestly, I respect everything they do because most of the time, like you said, they're the first ones in.
I can tell you it's because some portions of people, they don't like dogs, period. Some our support comes primarily from, and I'm just going to call it what it is. It comes from patriots. It comes from people that love our country. It comes from people that love uh, animals. Uh, we don't have. I don't tolerate negative comments against the dogs on our page. There's plenty of people that will support them. Our group is normally 35 plus. And they love the military, they love the police, they support our nation, they believe in the United States and the American dream of what it can still be if we'll just make it that way. Again, I won't get too political because I'm sure you don't need that, and nobody wants to hear my political opinion. So I'm just going to shut up while I'm ahead.
Now, I do have a tough question. Has there ever been one dog that you couldn't, was not savable, or you tried everything and you just couldn't save? Because I know there has to be those hard situations that you have to make those decisions.
It's interesting. A lot of people would never admit that, but yes, we've had dogs that have had to be euthanized because they were serious bite risk. They would attack uh, our kennel helpers. They would attack our kennel master. We try everything we can. Or, for instance, an advance. We get a dog home, and we first thing we do is we take and we get that dog extensive veterinary care. And if we find that dog is eaten alive and riddled with cancer, and there's no chance, we're not going to make that dog suffer, and we're not going to put that suffering on an adopter. So we try to do the right thing with love for every dog that comes into our care, whatever that is, whatever the dog needs.
And see, most organizations wouldn't answer that. Most of them say, no, they would like sugarcoat it. But I love the fact that you said, unfortunately, there are times where it's a lost cause, and you really have to do what's best for the animal as well.
Let me give you one more example. A lot of entities will identify themselves as no-kill shelters. It just simply means they don't do the killing. If they
Mhm.
have a dog that after a while is unplaceable, has issues, they will transfer that dog to another facility which will euthanize so they can keep their name clear.
Oh,
So to
wow.
say, it's very few and far between, but yes, medical cases that are unsavable, yes, we will euthanize. It's the easiest thing to do. It's the best thing to do for the dog, in my opinion.
Now, what do you look for when you go to place the dogs if the handlers don't get the dogs? What do you look for as far as?
The main thing is most of the dogs are not going to be compatible with a house full of other animals. And unfortunately, we get a ton of people that want to adopt and they've got lots of other dogs. And it creates, excuse me, it can create some wait time based on that. The main thing we look for is stability in a family. Number one is the ability to take care of any needed veterinary care. The last thing we want is to say, oh, we're sorry, boy, we just can't afford that. And the dog doesn't get care, and the next thing we hear, the dog has passed away. Senior dog care is not cheap.
Mhm.
The dog's got to have a couple, maybe 3 visits a year plus emergency care. My old Labrador Retriever Oreo, he had a very rare cancer. I spent over $20,000 out of my pocket to provide him 2 years of quality life. Now, does that mean that you have to have $20,000 to spend on a dog to get one? No, that's not what it means. It just means that you need to be able to take care of your dog. You need to have the time to spend with the dog. If you're working all day and you're going to leave the dog home, please don't apply to adopt. Make the dog a part of your family. Our dogs don't live outside. Our dogs aren't service animals. Their work is done. They're not emotional support dogs. Many times they need the emotional support. So those are the kind of things that are taken into consideration when we decide where to place one of our canines.
So our time is almost up. So do you have one last little nugget that you want to share with us?
Probably that you have never experienced the joy or the intelligence of an animal until you've had the chance to work with one of these dogs. They are absolutely incredible in their perception, their emotion, and what you could and what they can do for you. They will provide you, I don't know, just kind of a restorative feeling. I can be mad at the world and spend a few minutes with my dog, and somehow I just kind of forget what's wrong. So they're great. They're partners. They're not pets, but they do need lifetime home, love, and care. And most of our dogs we get are 9+, so we don't have a lot of time with them. So the time they have needs to be valuable time. And I do so appreciate you for having me on today.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on because, like I said, dogs are near and dear to my heart. And tell people where they can find Mission Canine on social media.
The biggest presence we have is on Facebook. As much as I don't particularly like Facebook these days, it's Mission K9 on Facebook. There we go. See it on the screen. You can donate there, or you can donate at missionk9rescue.org. We have a little presence on Twitter, not much, a little bit on Instagram. Most of our work is done through Facebook and the web. But if anybody has a question, feel free to reach out, ask. There's no such thing as a stupid question in the working dog world. And before you adopt, if you have a particular question, do read over our adoption section. It's on our website. Anyone can apply, and a lot of people say, well, what's the fee? We ask a $300 fee, which basically covers the cost of the neuter or the vet care. Nobody's getting wealthy off dog adoptions at Mission Canine.
I love that. No one's getting wealthy. And I love the fact that you're also being responsible, and if they're not neutered or spayed, that you go ahead and do that.
Right. It's a requirement. The military requires it, and we require it.
That is so awesome, because then it cuts down on the pet population in the shelters as well. So that's another way.
We don't want anybody. We've had a couple of people that have tried to get us to adopt a dog, and we found out they wanted to breed. It's like, oh, no, not going to do it.
I love that. So, Bob, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing about Mission K9. Now, I do want to ask about donations. Can people donate any amount of money? Like if they have $5 to spare, would you take $5?
I'll take $1. Nothing is too small. A lot of people don't give because they think it's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
But cumulatively, it all adds up to a larger volume, and it really, really, really helps so much. $5, $10, heck, $1's fine. We don't. It doesn't go to waste. Nobody rides first class. Nobody sits in leather chairs. Nobody stays at 5-star hotels. Most of the time, we sleep in our transport vehicles on the road. And we're talking 2 females that are busting their rears 80 hours a week plus, bringing these dogs home. I pale in comparison to their dedication.
I love that. So, guys, I will put in the show notes everywhere you can find Mission K9, as well as the donate button if you want to donate for them as well. Bob, I want to thank you so much for sharing Mission K9 with us, and also for coming on and just sharing the whole about the misconceptions about these service dogs and these dogs that are police dogs, because I think a lot of people think once they're done with their job, they're done with their life, but they're not. They have a second chance of life, and I love that.
This is true, and thank you again.
All right, guys, like I said, I'll put everything in the show notes. Be blessed, and most importantly, remember, keep chatting. See you next time.
Bye.